the power now. We're in this moment, and just let's be in the moment.
But the sprinter has expended all of his energy instantly and then needs time to recover.
Having more difficulty identifying what it is we want as opposed to what it is we don't want. And we're back, as Arnold Schwarzenegger would say. And actually, that reminds me, and I've been forewarned, don't perform. Just be yourself. Just be. And that's the book, The Power of Now. Actually, the whole book, if you read the whole book, the only thing I'm remembering out of it, if I summed it up in one line, is to be. To be or not to be. William Shakespeare, she only took, I'm not too sure if it's a he or a she that wrote it. I'm that bad. But I think it's a he. But it's to be. It's the I am to be. We're here. It's now. The power now. We're in this moment, and just let's be in the moment. Let's be present. Let's be. And that's what I'm not to perform. So I'll probably be reminded by George as we go. I'm going to naturally go there, but I'm going to try. We're going to try and have just a conversation, see where it goes. We're going to try and be present in the moment and just be. George.
Now, you've mentioned that you've been in The Power of Now. You've been reading another book also, and I've been looking at The Artist's Way, which was introduced to me last week, and I've been actioning some of the points there. What was the other book that you'd read?
I'm actually going to turn around and go, it's the Black Belt Mastermind. I'm going to take a direction from yourself and go, there it is. My wife was reading it, and she gave it to me. And I saw the black belt because my daughter is she's 1 year off her black belt. And so I like that. And it turned out the girl in question, Danielle Serpico, is a black belt and an international champion in it. And she's applied what she's learned from the rigors and professionalism and practices of martial arts and wrapped it around business speak and psychology to do her version of using actually neuralistic programming and NLP, and that's what she specializes in. So she's done her version of bringing her experience to date of running successful businesses, losing the business, finding her new way in life, and then as a result, drawing on her expertise is what was out there, which was her learning in her sport, and then applying that to her new mindset going forward to get a new strength of character and will. So that's an awful lot more than what I thought I got out of it. I read the book literally in a day. It's very consumable, very readable. And what I took out of it is it's literally the black belt, like it says on the tin, for your mind. It's to master your mind, to go through and go from your white belt to your black belt, go on this journey of training your mind to be in the now, taken from the other book, The Power Now, to be mindful of the now, to feed it, to exercise it, to under a number of headings, to not just do one thing, but it drew on a couple of books actually, like Tony Robbins' book as well. To Waken the Giant Within. There's exercise in there. He sort of says there's 5 big things. It's your health, your wealth, your family, your exercise, whatever, and maybe a personal project, to grow under a bunch of headings, running in parallel, as opposed to trying to do one thing to the extreme. Because if one is happening, the other is losing. If you're spending too much time in your business, you're not spending enough time with your family. If you're spending most time in your family, then maybe you're not giving enough to your business or your health. So the Black Belt Mastermind, she actually even mentions Tony in there, and she's done her version, which might be 3 pints a day, and go look at in the morning, say what 3 things need to be done, reflect on yourself, do a bit of reflection, plan for your day, and name the 3 things you want to do and grow in, and the 3 things that pain you the most. I might not be quoting right here. This is what I think it says now. I might be mixing books up, but they all seem to draw on the same thing. There's reflection, living in the now, planning to move forward successfully, and having a plan, implementing that plan, and not dwelling on fear, and not inaction is the worst thing you could do. So I'm going to let George get a word in edgewise.
The interesting thing is that I was introduced last week. In fact, it wasn't the first time I'd actually been introduced to this. I think several of my art friends had actually encouraged me to think about reading this book. It was called The Artist Way. The Artist Way has basically three principles. The first one is the morning pages, where you write at least 3 pages in a notebook, which would work out to be about 750 words. The second thing they encourage you to do is to have an artist date, and you're the artist, but there's the inner child within you, and it's encouraging you to take that inner you, the childlike you, out to explore the world, whether it's a museum, a movie, or a play, or listening to some music, or just going out and exploring the world as such.
Actually, I'm going to jump in a second there. Oh, sorry, work away, George. Sorry. Yeah.
The third part was to read the text of that week within the book, The Artist's Way. And what I wanted to just to explore was that I've been writing for the last week every morning, and what I found it did was it got rid of all those things inside you. What I then started to find towards the end of the week, or even from the very beginning at certain points, was that I was no longer interior me. I was now looking out and exploring the world around me and listening to the sounds, the smells, getting the smells, any scents that were there, and also hearing sounds. So I was using my senses to be more, to interpret what the world was around me. I was sitting in a garden and watching the world around me. So I was more external than I was internal. So I think that it's very good because what it does is it almost clears you out of your mind by just doing that writing process. And it is very important that it's a handwritten process and not a typed process, because there are different functions that are going on. I discussed rather with my wife that in the act of writing, you're visually learning, you're kinesthetically learning because of the actions you're taking with your hand, and you are also listening because you're reading through and hearing internally what you've just written. So you're going through that whole process, which I think is a very it's a way of learning and setting yourself right. What I found after each day's writing was that I felt energized to go off and do the work I needed to do, and I got through a lot more because I was no longer cluttered with those fears or those anxieties or whatever was causing me issues, because I'd already written them down. I got rid of them.
Actually, that's just jumping in there and talking about back to the Black Belt Mastermind, or even Tony Robbinson's book, or actually a bunch of other books I've read as well. They're all drawing on the same thing. It's this writing. It's this plan for the day, or micro plans to lead to the bigger plan, and getting the thoughts out of your head onto paper, into a task list of things to do or not to do, is what's happening there. And it's because otherwise we feel, I know with my wife, for example, she goes, if she sees there's 50 things to do, and including myself, we might do nothing because we haven't prioritized what to do in what order. Everything is equal and nothing is a priority, or everything is a priority. Therefore, what we have to realize is most of it we're giving higher rankings to and weightings to, which could be just administration. It's mow the lawn, or it's buy the milk. But that doesn't rank with change your career, or make that phone call, or submit that letter for an application or a CV. It shouldn't weigh the same, because some are life changing, some are admin. And that's what the Black Belt Mastermind, like, just because I read it yesterday, is saying, right, what's your 3 biggest worries? So just the minute you say biggest, your mind should reweight things subconsciously and go, these are my 3 biggest, problems, and these are my 3 biggest wishes, and this is the 3 things I need to do soonest or earliest. And then you start to go, well, that's a list for today. Or what can you tick one of them off? Actually, I saw something on LinkedIn yesterday, and this guy was again reflecting that. He was saying, get up an hour earlier in the morning. The millionaire mindsets, where get up that extra hour earlier. That hour is for you. In that hour, don't open your emails, turn off all your devices, don't listen to notifications, don't let anything seep into the now. The now, that early now, is for you to go off and have a jog, energize yourself for the day, have your pint of water. He says most people keep on forgetting this: water first and your coffee afterwards. Get your pint of water, or your 1.1 litres of water, whatever it is, and actually start your day properly, start it earlier, start it positively, start it for yourself, be in the moment, be in the now, energize yourself. And don't put negativity in first in terms of, here's my list of taxes and bills and frustrations and jobs that if it wasn't there, the washing, I would never do it. So therefore you should be waking up with a jump in your step, or whatever, I can't even remember the word now, and go, you're jumping out of bed, you're looking forward to the day, and if you're doing the power of now, there's only today, that's all that matters. Start it positively. Take those things, if they're in your head, write them down, take them out of your head, put them aside, and then get back to yourself, and in a couple of hours' time, take that hardest thing and do it first, so it doesn't block the rest of the day. So the 80-20 rule, get it out of the way first, and your day should get easier in terms of hard things and workload. But then at the same time, if you're doing your passion, then it's the first thing you want to do is get into it and engage with it and be in the moment and be in the now. So I like what you're saying about the artist's way. And admittedly, when I heard the word artist, I think people be thinking art, where actually what it is creativity. And it's not necessarily creativity, it's saying, who are you? Who is the inner you? Are you creative? What's your passion? Have you given yourself time in your mind to think about that? Or has the clutter of society and drudgery of daily events, from cleaning the table to all that I must do's and have to do's, but at the same time, it's consuming your life, and it's been given too much of a weighting or priority. What needs to be reweighted is the inner you what you need to be doing for yourself.
There's a very interesting example that I saw in a video, and it was a school teacher with a load of students. They were probably FE students. I'll go through the whole story and explain it, and then get you to come in and comment on it.
Good man. Okay. In other words, Garvin, shut up, let me talk. When I get to the end, I'll give you the nod. So I'm only talking still because the phone is ringing. So I'll
just see what, we won't stop anything. I can cut this out. Hello. Bye.
Now, before you kick back in there was a few buzzy bits in there with the sound. I don't know where it came from. It might have been because McAfee was doing something here, or may not have been, but doesn't matter. We're going to.
I think we'll trim those out. So basically, what the example was there was a lecturer with a load of FE students. So they're in their 16 to 18-year-old group, and he pulled out a bin and he showed them a bin, and he put a load of small balls into it and filled it up, and he says, right, so is the bin full? And all the youngsters said yes. And then he put a load of golf balls in there, and they filled up the little gaps in between. And then he put some marbles in there, and they filled up the gaps in between the golf balls and the bigger balls. And they kept saying, right, it's now full. So he had a bag of sand, and he tipped the sand in, okay, and it filled up all the crevices that were in between. And they said, is it now full? And he said, yeah. And he had a pint of beer on the side, and he tipped the pint of beer in. And they kind of going, okay, what's that all about? And he said, well,
the beer is back by the sounds of it.
Yeah, the beer is back. So what happened was, he said, look, if you'd actually started to fill the bin with the sand first, then the marbles, and then try to get to the golf balls, before you'd actually got to the golf balls, the bin would be full. But because we put the big bits in first, then the golf balls, then the marbles, then the sand, it actually all leveled itself out, and you were able to get all of those things done. And he was saying that the problem is that we tend to focus on the sand more often and feel that we don't get the big things that we want to do in life. And the lights of the artist's way is, well, I'll just finish this, but the point of the artist's way was that basically, if you then focused on the big things, you still get to do the small things, but they find their proper place, because what you were talking about, the right timing. When the students asked about what's the beer, he said, well, you've got to have some pleasure. Go on.
Actually, what you're saying there, and actually the last statement there was, then we're assuming that the glass or the bin or the glass now is the vessel of the body so we're the beer. Well, no, we're the vessel.
It's actually let's say it's the bin. The bin is the vessel.
No, I'm just saying, I'm using an analogy now of going, if there has to be some pleasure, I don't see a bin enjoying a bottle of beer. I'm saying the bin is us. And all those different elements that you're putting in is how we fill our mind and ourselves. Now, it could be filling yourself with food, or bad things or good things, and sweeties and healthy. But now, in terms of all it is there, each one of these items is you can keep on putting more. You can keep on putting more in, and your mind or your being is not full. Now, I'm going the bin. Right, hold on a second. As a vessel of a body, it's a bad analogy already. I'm going, okay, even if it had been a glass, I think when I heard that story, it was actually a jar in a science lab, a similar analogy as what else you get in there. And I'm going, now in terms of what we're talking about, I'm going, both vessels are confined and can be filled, and they will be full, but full of different things. I'm going, our mind is bigger than the universe, and actually the bin you can get rid of and the bottle you can get rid of, because we can keep on taking in an infinite amount of stuff if we learn to tap into the inner self, the power of the brain. The brain doesn't even get 5% used. The amount of neurons and things going on in there is still has more capability than the best data centers and computers on the planet, and they would not even touch what is capable in there. There's
something quite interesting about that, because the brain actually isn't infinite. And what actually happens when psychologically, when we're doing, we actually filter out. There's so much information going on, but what we do is we filter out all the stuff that's irrelevant. We don't actually need it, so we cut it out, so that we take the more important things, and that's what we then focus on.
There and go, that's based on those that currently can only, let's say that the general pop is tapping only 5% of their capability, and that 5% is like the bin. It's full. It's a 5% that's nearly full, and for something else to go in, something has to come out. Whereas the other 95% hasn't been tapped. We haven't opened up the left and right hand sides and realize how we can actually grow and spark new neurons. An awful lot of studies say, we're full and we can't learn anymore. Well, actually what's happened is people are advised in their later years to start reading more, play chess, even music, and actually it starts opening up other parts of the brain that he previously hadn't tapped because there was the block or the fear. And actually most times, if it was like my son or myself, we're going, I want to learn by osmosis. I don't want to go through the learning curve of learning. Therefore, I feel I can't learn anymore. I wouldn't know how to do that. I read 5 books, which if we start in the last, let's say, month, and if you had told me to do them as a job, I would have seen them as work. I would have put a block in and I wouldn't have bothered. Now I'm going in, I know subliminally or subconsciously, I'm drawing on all 5 books the best bit I remember of each, and how that might apply to myself or us in terms of park the past, live in the power of now, be present, realize if we want to move change, then we can go on a new journey. Change is about growth. It's moving from fixed mindset to growth mindset. If we start learning something new, we're going to benefit under all headings of health, mindfulness, energy, interest.
I think one of the biggest problems is that because we expect to become experts instantly, and we get all this information that hits us instantly, and we can't process that information. We actually need the information to slow down so we can actually work through it. And that's, we've even used that term, you have to work through it. In other words, you have to process it. And the joy is not actually sort of making it hard labor. It's actually saying, look, if I take this chunk, I can work at it, then this chunk, and then this chunk. And if I keep building upon it and practice and practice and practice, I'll actually learn, and it will become second nature. But we seem to assume that if we only do something once that we've learnt, and we're only giving ourselves a chance to do something once because we're getting flooded with so many other things. And it goes back to what we discussed earlier on. There's a time for every little bit. I'm messing around with the keyboards on a piano, and what happens is every now and then I come back and I just tinkle around, and then I go away because I've got something else that I'm about to do. So I time slice, and I gradually build up that information and get better and better because I'm not expecting to be an instant pianist overnight. I'm just gradually building those things up until I will become good. Well, and I've been doing that with the violin, you see, as well.
But you've got realistic expectations.
Yes.
I don't, or didn't. So therefore, I wanted to be learn by osmosis. I bought a guitar. I expected to look like, sort of a rock star within 20 minutes because I had the imagery, the brand, the look, the feel. I just didn't have the experience, the knowledge, or the passion. But I mean, at the same time, the language you were using a minute ago was nearly a mix of business speak and a non-business speak, in the sense of investing time. It's the bits and pieces and work towards. Whereas people don't want to hear the word work and they expect to know it. And it's what we're talking about is we have to invest our resources, that we have of time and focus and energy, into whatever that might be, on a consistent basis, to have any realistic expectation of actually learning something. Now, some of us might be naturals and they get there 80-20 quicker, and others might have no natural ability for that particular thing. And no matter what you do, you will never get there. Well, the same place for the amount of time and energy.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is that quite often we see the sprinter as the ideal, and we forget about the long distance runner. And actually, we need to be long distance runners who may not be working at the same speed as the sprinter, but the sprinter has expended all of his energy instantly and then needs time to recover from that building up all that energy and then suddenly letting it go. He's then got to build that up. Whereas the long distance runner is plodding along and actually accumulating a lot more information and doing a lot more with it, and can achieve a lot more, I think, because he builds up a certain amount of stamina.
Now, there's something interesting. If we're back into the power of now, and there's only a now, and what we're talking about is people with realistic expectations as to how much time are they willing to invest of all these nows in the future to get this result they want.
Yeah.
Now, the result might be, I want to be Usain Bolt, or the result might be, I want to be able to run a mile or 5 miles on some Dublin marathon or something, because I don't have an expectation to be an international star in it.
Yeah.
But in both cases, you're going to have to use up a bunch of nows of time. And if you're doing that, you're not doing something else. You're not going to be with the kids unless they're running beside you, or you're not going to. So it's this. We have to. It's this value of time at a moment in time to choose one thing over another, give it a different weighting, and because you have a vision or a goal that you've set, that I want to get healthier, I want to be able to run the Dublin Marathon, but I haven't even walked the garden. Therefore, my expectation is by this time next year, if I did an hour a day, I built up gradually, I'll invest this time in my health, in my mindfulness, to get exercise, to then get to a stage that it gives me more time in my lifespan, because hopefully I'll be a little bit healthier and then live longer. And it should give me a bit of payback as a result, to then be with the kids. And that's where there's 5 big things on the Tony Robbins comes, and the Black Belt Mastermind, and even the Power Now. Invest your time wisely in the present, in things that will make you healthier, wealthier, and wiser, and gives more value and mindfulness or meaning to the present, and the amount of presence you have till the end of time, or the end of days, days.
And in fact, all of those books and the Artist's Way, they're all talking about the biggest problem is the fear. So the fear that you can't do something stops you and inhibits you. You talked about the fact that if you've got 50 things to do, you can't process it. If you give them equal weighting, then you end up hitting a brick wall. And I remember once working for an editor when I was very young, in the early days of my career, and they had 10 things they wanted me to do. And we may have talked about this before. But when I asked what took priority, he said they're all the same. I ended up going out into the hallway and actually literally stopping, because I didn't know which one to do, and that's where you get the kind of meltdown. If you don't prioritize, if you don't give weighting to certain things over others, you can never get any of them done. And that's when you become paralyzed, which I think is something that's actually happened there. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we were also, that is also said in the Artist's Way and the Tony, what's his name? Tony Robbins book.
Awaken a joint within.
That's it. Is that you also need time to stop. And in those times when you've stopped and you've got rid of the inner voice, because the inner voice is one of the clogs. If you write stuff down and get the inner voice out, then you don't have the inner voice there. You're now open to other opportunities that may present and give you a solution to a problem that you have. Because one of the things there was that we talked in one of the earlier episodes, we ended up talking about Taoism, or yin and yang and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that they were talking there was that if you stop trying, quite often you find a solution. And I've actually said to my wife quite a few times, or she said to me, "You're trying too hard, George. You need to stop, and you'll find the path."
You're literally at the quoting something straight out of the book there, like the Black Belt Mastermind, and it's like, and actually every other book as well. You've got to stop to start. You've got to stop to think, to plan. Actually, most business strategies involve don't rush in, stop, plan, and then prioritize, and then do. So, but as opposed to just don't go off and do, because you just go off into your silos. Now, what reminded me when we were talking about there was when you have when you have 10 things or you don't know what the answer is. So old wives' tales, because you've heard it out there everywhere, and they didn't realize they're quoting all these masterminds, is sleep on it. Go to bed with your question and you'll wake up with the answer. And your subconscious is working 100 times more than your conscious is, and it'll go off and find it. So even if I forget a name, I normally get it by the end of the conversation, and it comes back in because my unconscious or subconscious has gone off and is doing the work for me. And I actually do believe go to bed now, not with stress and worry type things, because I actually, one thing I've said it to yourself a number of times is I work harder in my sleep than I do when I'm awake. I'm going off doing spreadsheets and God knows what and solving problems. I wake up and I realize I've done nothing, but my energies because I have these dream or power naps and dream like you do this REM times, you've now done 900 times the compression of work in your sleep and had a restless night, and may not have woke up asleep. You've thought you've done the work and you still haven't done it. Now, that's the wrong thing. To go to bed emptying your mind and asking the universe for the solution. So ask the universe, and then wake up, and your subconscious will more than likely have suggested the path of least resistance. And I think it actually might even suggest, forget all of that nonsense. It's rubbish in the first place. You shouldn't even be thinking about it. And that's where most time we're trying to put stuff in front of us that shouldn't even be there. We shouldn't even be talking about it. It shouldn't even enter. And that's where we're arriving back at the power now, is we've prioritized the wrong things. This is stuff that's using up our life and shouldn't even be in our consciousness. It's not only in our consciousness, it's in our subconscious. And it's never mind the fear. We're worrying about the future of it in the present. And as I think before we started this conversation, we're saying sometimes you like the word reflecting, and because it's coming out of all these books as well in terms of reflective practice and learning. But sometimes I heard, because of what I was reading, I was hearing the word reflective is now thinking about the past or reflecting on something, which is now bringing the past back into the present, using up my present now and the power of now. It's already gone. The reflection should have already happened subconsciously. We've already made the decision to move on. We want nothing in here other than the new we're asking the universe for under our new wants and wishes and journeys.
Well, one of the things that's quite interesting is that because I was starting to think about this idea that what we need to do is empty ourselves out. And at that point, we can then stop. So we've emptied out that chitter-chatter box that's in there. The other thing about reflection is, if you actually think about it, a reflection is now. Because if you're in the now, you're actually looking at your reflection and sort of kind of going, well, that's where I am now. You're stopping the internal and looking outward to see that reflection of yourself, to say...
well, that's good. You're saying reflection. I was taking your reflective practice wording to be reflecting on where you are, or on stuff you've learned or thought process. Whereas I like what you just said is the reflection is actually in the mirror, and it's not that you're even thinking or consuming. It's this is you now. This is the as is. This is the I am. Now, the other books we're talk about. Actually, the Black Belt Mastermind was drawing on a few of them, was saying what her style is to bring the future now to the present and work backwards how you got to the future and start carrying out those steps now. Yeah. So if you see what you want to actually do at that point is reflect your best you in the future you want to be now and go on that journey.
Now, if you go back to that other thing we were talking about trying, if we're trying, we're filling up the now because we're just constantly trying and not listening to what could be coming to us. So all our energies is going to this almost obsessive approach to things, and we're blocking ourselves, which is where the buffering, you remember when you watch TV and all of a sudden it stops because it's trying to buffer, there's so much information it can't actually process it. Well, we get those kind of blocks. But if we can get rid of that and let it out, we then open ourselves up to the other influences around us that will give us a better direction to actually achieve things.
Ask the universe, because what we've done, if we add all the books together so far that we're looking at, is we've drawn a line in the sand in the past. We're not happy with that. We're listening to the books and going, that's gone. That's where it belongs. It's not to be brought back in or dwelled on or even mentioned, because it's giving it airtime it doesn't deserve.
And I think if we look at other philosophies, or wherever your philosophy is coming from, or whatever religion person's coming from, they all have something that is there to try and influence you and speak. But if we're blocking that path for them to talk to us, or whoever it is to talk, who could actually be quite simply the person sitting next to us, because we're not listening to them, we're just so busy doing our own thing. But if we stop for a moment, they might be able to give us a slightly better perspective because of where they're looking at what we're doing from that point of view. If we were open to be listening, and we can only be open to listen if we're empty and stopping that chitter chatter from going on. How's your mobile doing?
Mobile, well, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. It's given me a couple of minutes. It's still there.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here is you've reminded me of something I said yesterday or spotted on LinkedIn, and someone had some little 30-second or 10-second snippet. And I think it was from a TED talk, and she was going, her expertise was conversation. She goes, the 10 points to having a good conversation. What I was realizing is, I found a little bit of the inner me through all these books and meeting yourself and reflecting over the last year of what I don't like. And like my daughter, we're having more difficulty identifying what it is we want as opposed to what it is we don't want. But that's good. We sorted out what we don't want. And we're being left with a little bit of, well, if it's not that, it might be the opposite. It might be this. But I realize is, what do I like doing? So at the core, I think I mentioned to you, Mother of God, I think anyone in the audience, if there is an audience, can guess, I like talking. Now, I'm not going to get worried about how you get paid and where money might come from. If all I had was a moment I'm in, I'd like to be talking. Now, that then says, you like listening to yourself? No, the conversations. So this is a conversation. We're giving ourselves a little bit of airtime. I admittedly am trying to grab more because I had 10 sentences together, but conversation. So I'd like to find what I think the journey is I'm on the journey to find my voice. I like talking, that's the wrong terminology. I like conversations. I love conversation. But that now is what I've learned from what she was saying was on this LinkedIn thing is, listen. The best conversation will come from listening. And I'm going, oh God, right. I'm going to have to learn that bit, and I'm going to have better conversations with yourself and others on the basis of listening more and maybe not talking so much. So
and the interesting thing is, the interesting thing is that's actually the title of this episode is The Art of Listening.
Well, it's not the art of talking anyway.
No. But I think so, because one of the problems is that it's if we empty ourselves out, then we can listen to what's coming in from around us. So it actually echoes that point.
I was saying that's a bad title, George. And so no, hold on a second. The Art of Listening, because what we're saying is listen to the inner you, listen to the universe, listen to your friends and family, listen to the economy, listen to business, and then but do something about it. Hear, listen, hear. Act, change, transform, grow, and be mindful. So be mindful of it, but use the best of it. Hear the right pieces. Let the subconscious click away and provide you with the answers of what did you actually hear.
And thank the audience for listening to this episode. Thank you very much.
Well,
Look forward to seeing you in the next
God,
one.
He shut up long enough for George to get a word in edgeways. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.